Updated December 2, 2017 161,006. The world's biggest lithium-ion battery has been launched in South Australia, with Premier Jay Weatherill declaring it an example of SA leading the world. Mr. Weatherill travelled to the site of the battery near Jamestown in the state's north with Romain Desrousseaux, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of French renewable energy company NEOEN, which will operate the 100-megawatt Tesla battery attached to its Hornsdale wind farm. Tesla boss Elon Musk, who travelled to South Australia twice this year to mark significant milestones for the battery, did not visit for this event. Mr. Weatherill made light of the billionaire's non-attendance, pointing out Mr. Musk had delivered on his promise to deliver the battery within a 100-day deadline and deliver it free. "The great thing about Elon is he delivers," Mr. Weatherill said. He's very proud of the fact that they were able to meet that deadline. He's probably a little bit relieved as well. He's got $50 million in his back pocket. The Premier said the battery had sent a message that his state was open to innovation. "This has put us at the centre of the tech universe in South Australia," he said. Hot weather prompts early operation. While the Premier braved wet and foggy conditions to launch the battery on the first day of summer, it was actually called into operation one day early. Unexpectedly hot conditions across South Australia and Victoria on Thursday afternoon meant power was in short supply in both states. The battery was ordered on by the Australian energy market operator AEMO late in the afternoon, pumping up to 70 megawatts of power into the grid to help meet peak demand. SA taxpayers will pay up to $50 million in subsidies to Tesla and NEOEN over the next 10 years. In return, the state government will have access to 70% of the energy stored within the battery. Mr. Weatherill said it would prove a useful tool for preventing blackouts, whether they be caused by a shortage of energy, or a lack of grid stability. It provides stabilization services, which is short bursts of energy for the purposes of providing frequency control, he said. The second thing it does is potentially provide an extra burst of energy to deal with reserve shortfalls, the sorts of things that emerged yesterday. The battery won't stop all blackouts. While the battery proved its worth on the final day of spring, some of its closest neighbours spent the first day of summer without power. Widespread thunderstorms swept across the state overnight, with lightning strikes damaging some power lines, including in the Jamestown area. Northern Areas Council Mayor Dennis Clark said a number of nearby farmers were left blacked out. They were wondering if the Premier would supply some long extension cords so they could tap into the battery to get some power, he said. Bev Lovell, who lives near the wind farm and battery site, said a number of recent blackouts had left her angry and frustrated. "I look out our bathroom window and I look at wind turbines," she said. "How are we meant to be able to communicate with the outside world when we can't charge our phones and we can't even run our fridges and freezers and keep our things running like normal people would?" The Premier said no type of power generator could prevent the sorts of blackouts caused by lightning, damage to power lines and other infrastructure. "We had 250,000 lightning strikes, an extraordinary number," he said. "It's amazing we don't have more lines down and we don't have more people out of power." But Mr. Weatherill said the battery would help make SA more resilient to the sorts of outages caused by the failure of generators, or system security problems like the statewide blackout last September. "I think there's a view that nothing would have saved us on the 28th of September, but it may save us from less drastic events," he said. Mr. Weatherill said the AEMO had adopted a more cautious approach since the statewide blackout, and had taken steps ahead of the thunderstorms to protect the system. Battery to pay for itself. Mr. Weatherill said he expected to quickly recoup his government's investment in the battery by driving down power bills. The government intends to use its share of the battery's output to bid into the market for stability services, which it estimates costs South Australian households and businesses in the order of $50 million a year. "We expect that eventually this battery will be able to put a big hole in the cost for South Australian consumers," Mr. Weatherill said. "So if that happens in the way in which we expect, this battery will pay for itself from the perspective of South Australians pretty quickly." Topics: electricity, energy and utilities, states and territories, alternative energy, environment, energy, science and technology. Adelaide 5,000, Jamestown 5,491. SA first posted December 1, 2017 165,309.